Hi everyone. I just wanted to briefly share my thoughts that I basically have after every outcome of any election. As usual, half of the population is outraged, half of the population thinks they've saved the country, and well, none of them is right. What this means is now we continue for the next 4 or 5 years to campaign on behalf of our candidate, trying to get him into power, and or her, obviously. And if we succeed, we'd be patting ourselves on the back. If we lose, we'd be outraged and sad. And it's right to be outraged. It's very important to be outraged, but you have to be outraged at the right thing. The right thing to be outraged at is a person holding the belief that they can control you, that they can implement policies that force you to comply, which is coercion, obviously. That is never moral. And because it is never moral, it is something you should be outraged at. You shouldn't really be outraged at losing the election because you love the system. You think democracy is the best that we have. So even if your candidate doesn't win, at least democracy prevailed, right? The majority won. The problem is the world is not falling to shits. The world is fine. Systems are deteriorating and falling to shits. Like bubbles in which we live, city bubbles especially, but just collectivist bubbles that we live in, they are falling apart in this day and age. And the world is fine, like nature is fine, but we are part of nature, so we should live in tune with it. Anyway, I'm digressing. What I'm trying to say is, it feels like the world is falling apart, and there are reasons for that. But it's not because your neighbor voted wrongly. And that's what makes me so sad, is we will now continue to think the world goes to shits because those stupid people voted stupidly and our candidate didn't win. If you believe in democracy and think that is the best we have, then you cannot really be outraged because the system still prevailed, right? The majority still won. Like, we still have majority rule. That's the most important thing, isn't it? The thing is, people start to realize that that doesn't solve everything. Just having the majority rule doesn't mean they're going to make sensible decisions. But instead of admitting that majority rule might not be the right system, they say, I hear that a lot now, they say, like, you just need the right person in power, like it should be a benevolent dictator kind of guy, because clearly one person should decide because majority rule doesn't work. And I get the sentiment of one person has to decide because it's actually true, but it's not the benevolent dictator that needs to decide, it's you. You need to decide for your life and nothing else. It's the only thing you have control over. It's the only thing you can make decisions about. It's also why it's immoral to make decisions about another person's life, because that's their life. They own it. They need to make decisions about their life. This doesn't mean that people won't get together in collectives when things need to get done. All right? And now some people might say, yeah, but that is policy making. No, it's not. Policy making, or at least the policy making that we have in government, has the clear distinction that every decision that is made, or every edict it passes, or every decision that is made is backed by violence or the threat of the use of violence in case you don't comply. That is immoral. It is immoral to force somebody into compliance. And it doesn't become right just because government does it. That is what you need to get outraged at. That there are human beings that believe they have control over your life. And it's not even the worst, aren't even the ones on tops, the ones that then actually occupy the offices. They are megalomaniacs. They believe like they are these godlike figures that can make decisions, for millions. They are to be blamed, but not as much as us who believe they have that authority. They don't. They simply don't have that authority. You can believe they do, but it's a belief. It's in your head. It's an illusion. The natural state, the state that you can logically deduct, is that they don't have authority over you. You are an individual. Your body, what you do with it, the work, the labor, that's what you control, that's yours. It follows logically by us being born as separate individuals that we don't control the other individual. The reason we have such a hard time wrapping our head around that is because obviously we are taught the exact opposite all our life. It's crazy. Like it's brainwashing at its finest. We don't see a human being as an individual. By the time we leave school or uni, or by the time we partake in adult life and go voting, by that time we see the individual as part of a collective. That's what defines human beings in this day and age, is the collective of which they are part. Or in other words, the ideology that they follow. And that's the wrong way to look at the world. Like, it cannot result in anything good, because we have a completely delusional view of reality, in which when we look at an individual as part of a collective and not the other way around. It's like, you need to understand what it means to be an individual and what rights, or natural rights, that come with that. And control over other human beings is none of those rights. So it logically follows that a system like that can only fail. And what makes me so sad about this election is that we're now going to spend another 4 or 5 years just trying to get the right person into power, rather than uniting in the face of a common enemy and campaigning for our common humanity and what that entails. Now, uniting in face of a common enemy, by that, I still believe it can be done peacefully. There are a lot of people that believe it cannot be done peacefully anymore, which who I cannot blame. I mean, I might be naive, I don't know. I think by just information, and sharing ideas and just talking about these things that we just never talk about because they're not part of any school curriculum. Naturally, it's government schools. Why would they make the students question the very system? Of course not. But we need to share these ideas, because it's just ideas. It's it's not harmful. Like, if it triggers you that much that you think my ideas are harmful, or you need to just meditate and ask yourself why. Like, you're so afraid of what would happen in a free world that you don't want freedom to be the natural state. Well, then you need to admit to yourself that it's just your fear, and you can overcome that fear. It's an irrational fear which you can totally overcome. It's good to get outraged, but don't get outraged because your candidate lost. Get outraged at the common enemy who wants to control humanity, who believe they can control humanity. And if you believe you can control humanity, or if you believe you can control another human being, which I don't doubt many people do, because they advocate the system. And you obviously, once you've realized you don't control other people, then you only have to realize that the system is all about control of other people, and then you might reject the system. But if you really believe you have the right to control other people, because that's the only way to guarantee a, peaceful society, then you need to take a look in the mirror. I took a look in the mirror. The moment I started doing so, I chipped away at a lot of my old beliefs, and it's a hard process. Dr. Jordan Peterson, when he talks about chipping away at these old beliefs, he calls it burning off dead wood, and I like that because it kind of implies that it's a painful process, right? And it's going to be more painful the more dead wood you've accumulated over the course of your life. But if there's one saying in this world, and there are many sayings that are true, but if there's one saying in this world that is really true, then it is that which doesn't kill us only makes us stronger. If we only understood that freeing ourselves from any concept of rulership wouldn't kill us, man, what a world could we build? If we understood that getting rid of rulers doesn't mean getting rid of organization, or getting rid of getting together to build things, or to organize shit. It's like, no. Just get rid of those people that believe they can force you to play along. And again, if you believe that's how it should be, then you need to take a close look into the mirror. until you realize you have absolutely no right to control another human being. And the other thing I wanted to just briefly say about Jordan Peterson, who also always claims that he wants to fortify the individual. I think he very much believes that there need to be a system of political representation, or whatever you want to call it, that forces individuals to play along. That to me is at times an outright oxymoron. Oxymoron? How do you say it in English? Oxymoron. A government will never strengthen any individual because it depends on the majority. And the majority rules over the minority. And the individual is the ultimate minority. So it will forever remain the greatest mystery to me how he could not just naturally arrive at, make anarchy his guiding philosophy or principle, because that is the ultimate fortification of the individual, is getting rid of rulers, because the true strong individual rules him or herself. You are the monarch of yourself. It's like what Mark Passio so brilliantly puts at what we have at the moment is outside monarchy, inner anarchy. What you want is inner monarchy, outside anarchy. Realize the rulers are not external, ruling a chaotic mass. The ruler is internal, and that will create order in the outside world, because what Jordan Peterson also always says, clean your room, get your act together. That is ruling yourself. There again, it's so clear that the fortification of the individual comes at the expense of the collective. I mean, of thinking about human beings as collectives. We need to stop thinking of ourselves as part of a collective, and then things might change. And I pointed this out in one of Jordan Peterson's recent posts about fortifying the individual. I wrote in the comment section, and another person commented saying, but I can already see that you mentioned, people get together to get things done. That is policy making. So that's why I'm emphasizing, well, okay, call it policy making, but is it voluntary, or will you force people that don't want to opt in with your policies to play along? Because if you force them to play along, then it's immoral. A reason people might have a hard time imagining a scenario where, people decide something and somebody says, I don't want to be part of it, and just go back home, is because it's all happening on a worldwide scale. The collectives we are dealing with have become bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, we look at localized policy making or localized decision making as backward thinking. Everything needs to be decentralized even more, and now all of Europe is ruled from Brussels. And I mean, you can clearly see the tendency to go to move towards a one world government, right? Because the rhetoric will then suggest that shows that we are one. No, it doesn't. It shows what the rulers want to see, that we are one collective, that we are one homogeneous mass that they can rule. That's what they mean when they say we are one. No, when we say we are one, then we need to realize that I am one, therefore you are one, we all are one, Because we look at it all on the grand scale, that's why we have such a problem wrapping our head around that, decision making doesn't need to be forced or coerced. You don't have to be coerced into compliance. That only happens because it happens on such a large scale that any decision that is made will be rejected by many. It's if you look at it on that scale, then of course, how do you want to be flexible enough that people can opt out and opt in and decide where they spend their money on and where not. And if you have it on a localized level, then even the notion that people get together and decide things where then one person might not agree and leave again is very unlikely that happens, because on a localized level, the communities will actually decide on things that are actually of worth to the community. People get so frustrated with this collectivist government system because so many things are decided that they don't want to be a part of. The money is used for so many things they don't want to be a part of. There is no way of opting in and opting out, which is force, or it's coercion, which is immoral. But on a smaller scale, it's just much harder to imagine scenarios where people even get together and start collectively deciding if there's not concrete need for action, right? And there's always concrete need for action in various areas, and the people that are living there in that area know best what action to take. It's absurd to assume a person or a group of people in Brussels, can make policies that benefit, a little farmer's village. So yeah, I think those were the main points I wanted to make. Thanks Thanks for listening, and yeah, and enjoy your life, and be healthy and fruitful and unafraid and courageous. You know, meditate over the fact that you are a sovereign individual, that you are your own monarch, that you are a king that sits in on the throne behind in your head. You know, that rules your actions, your thoughts, and stop legitimizing a system of rulers and of rulers and subjects, or masters and slaves.